The art exhibit buzzed with energy, the air thick with creativity and conversation. I wandered through the vibrant displays, my heart heavy with a sense of isolation that had become all too familiar. Each piece of art seemed to reflect my own feelings of neglect, colors clashing in a chaotic dance, much like my emotions. My husband, Mark, had become a ghost in our home, consumed by work and deadlines. The warmth we once shared had faded into a distant memory, leaving me feeling invisible. As I moved from one installation to another, I spotted a familiar face across the room, David, Mark's best friend. He stood there, captivated by a large canvas splattered with bold strokes of red and blue. A wave of nostalgia washed over me as I recalled the times when our trio would spend weekends together, laughing and sharing stories over glasses of wine. Those days felt so far away now. I hesitated for a moment before approaching him. "David?" I called out softly. He turned, his eyes lighting up with recognition. "Jessica. It's been ages." We exchanged pleasantries as we navigated through the crowd. The initial awkwardness melted away as we reminisced about shared memories, hiking trips and late-night conversations that once bound us together. I couldn't help but feel a flicker of warmth in my chest as he spoke animatedly about his latest project. "Mark's been busy?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "Yeah," I replied, trying to keep my tone light. "He has a lot on his plate lately." David nodded knowingly. "Work can consume you if you let it." We drifted toward an installation that featured an interactive piece where visitors could leave their thoughts on colorful sticky notes. As we wrote our messages and stuck them to the wall, laughter bubbled between us, a sound I hadn't heard in what felt like forever. "I miss this," I admitted quietly, glancing at the notes around us. Each one was filled with hopes and dreams, reminders of what it meant to connect. "Me too," David said softly, his gaze lingering on mine for a moment longer than necessary. An unspoken understanding passed between us, we were both searching for something more in our lives. The exhibit came to an end far too quickly for my liking. As we stepped outside into the crisp San Francisco evening air, the golden glow of streetlights illuminated our path along the bustling streets filled with laughter and chatter from nearby cafes. "Would you like to grab coffee sometime?" David asked casually. I hesitated for just a heartbeat before nodding. "Sure, that sounds nice." As we exchanged numbers under the twinkling lights of Union Square, excitement coursed through me, a feeling that had long been absent from my life. The thought of reconnecting with David ignited something within me that I hadn't realized was dormant for so long. But as I walked home that night through the familiar streets lined with artisan shops and cozy eateries, an unsettling weight settled in my stomach. What did this mean? Was it right to seek comfort in someone else? Guilt crept in like an unwelcome guest at a party where everyone else was having fun while I stood alone in the corner. Days turned into weeks as our coffee meetings transformed into longer conversations filled with laughter and shared stories over pastries at local cafes. Each encounter felt like stepping into sunlight after being trapped in shadows for too long. Yet every time I saw David's name pop up on my phone screen or felt his gaze linger on me just a second too long during our chats, guilt coiled tighter around my heart. One afternoon at Golden Gate Park, a sprawling oasis amidst the city's hustle, we found ourselves sitting on a bench beneath blooming cherry blossom trees. The petals danced gently in the breeze as we talked about everything from art to life's disappointments. "I always thought you were so adventurous," David remarked playfully as he recounted one of our hiking escapades from years ago. I chuckled softly but felt something shift within me at his words. The way he looked at me made me feel alive again. "I used to be," I replied quietly, almost wistfully. In that moment of vulnerability shared between us, David leaned closer, an electric charge hung in the air between us, and before either of us could think twice about it, our lips met briefly in an innocent kiss that sent shockwaves through me. Panic surged immediately afterward. What had just happened? We pulled apart quickly as reality crashed down around us like waves against rocks. This was crossing a line neither of us intended to breach. Jessica, he started but faltered as uncertainty clouded his expression. I'm sorry, I whispered hurriedly, shame flooded over me like cold water dousing flames of excitement moments before. No, don't be. His voice was gentle yet firm as he searched my eyes for understanding amidst confusion swirling around us both. That kiss lingered between us like an unspoken promise wrapped in fear not only for what it meant but also for what lay ahead if things continued down this path fraught with complications and secrets hidden beneath layers of affection blossoming against all odds. As evening fell over San Francisco's skyline painted pink and orange hues reflecting off bay waters below, a beauty contrasting sharply against turmoil brewing within, I knew deep down this moment marked not just another chapter but rather stood at crossroads where choices would soon determine everything going forward. The days following that kiss unfolded like a series of vibrant paintings, each brushstroke filled with color and emotion. I found myself caught in a whirlwind of exhilaration and trepidation. Each time I met with Mark, my husband's best friend, it felt like stepping into a new world, one where laughter and connection replaced the silence that had settled in my marriage. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, weaving through topics of art, life, and dreams left unfulfilled. In those moments, I felt seen. Mark listened intently, his eyes reflecting understanding as if he could sense the weight I carried. We shared stories over coffee at our local cafe, where the aroma of freshly brewed beans mingled with the sounds of clinking cups and soft chatter. Do you remember that art exhibit we went to years ago? Mark asked one afternoon, a nostalgic smile gracing his lips. Of course, I replied, my heart racing at the memory. You were so passionate about that one piece, the one with the swirling colors. It reminded me of how chaotic life can be, he said thoughtfully. But also how beautiful it can become. His words resonated deeply within me. The chaos in my life was palpable. My marriage felt like an unfinished canvas. I was desperate for something more than just existence. As our friendship deepened, so did the complexity of my emotions. Guilt intertwined with excitement each time we met. A part of me reveled in this newfound connection while another part whispered reminders of loyalty and commitment to my husband. One evening, we found ourselves wandering through Golden Gate Park after an art show. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows that danced around us. The air was crisp yet warm against our skin as we strolled side by side. I never thought I could feel this way again, Mark confessed quietly, glancing at me from the corner of his eye. I felt a rush of warmth at his words but also a pang of fear. What do you mean? Like there's something real here, he continued, stopping to face me fully now. Something worth exploring. My heart raced as he stepped closer, the familiar thrill mixing with uncertainty. It was in that moment, a fragile pause filled with unspoken words, that we kissed again. The world around us faded away, it felt like freedom wrapped in vulnerability. But as exhilarating as those moments were, they came with their own burdens, heavy secrets threatening to unravel everything if discovered. Days turned into weeks as our encounters became more frequent yet increasingly fraught with tension. Each meeting brought joy but also anxiety about what lay ahead, a constant reminder that every stolen moment came at a cost. One afternoon while sitting on a park bench surrounded by blooming flowers and laughter echoing from nearby families enjoying their day out, I sensed an unmistakable shift in our dynamic. Jessica, Mark said hesitantly, do you think we should slow down? This feels intense. His words struck me like lightning. They echoed my own fears but also ignited a flicker of hope within me, a desire to hold on to what we had created despite its fragility. I don't want to lose this, I admitted softly, searching his gaze for reassurance. Neither do I, he replied earnestly but then added cautiously, but what if it leads to more pain? The question hung heavily between us. It was a reminder that every choice carries consequences, both known and unknown. Despite our conversation weighing on my mind like an anchor pulling me down into uncertainty, I couldn't shake off how alive I felt whenever we were together. Then came an unexpected turn, one that would change everything yet again. While preparing for dinner one evening at home alone, my husband working late, I received a text from Mark, "Can we meet tonight?" My heart fluttered at the thought but quickly plummeted when another message followed, "I need to talk." Panic surged through me. What could possibly warrant such urgency? My hands trembled slightly as I typed back, "Is everything okay?" "It's about us." With dread pooling in my stomach like lead weights dragging me down into darkness, I agreed to meet him later that night at our usual spot, the cafe where everything began. When I arrived, Mark sat at our table looking pensive and distant, a stark contrast to the joyful man who had become such an integral part of my life over these past weeks. "What's wrong?" I asked immediately upon sitting down across from him. He hesitated before speaking. His voice trembled slightly as he confessed, "I've been thinking about us, about your husband." My heart sank further into despair as guilt washed over me anew. It felt suffocating under its weight. "What do you mean?" "I don't want to hurt him," Mark said firmly yet gently. "But this isn't just fun anymore for either of us." The truth hung heavy between us like fog rolling in from the bay, thickening the air around us until breathing became difficult amidst swirling emotions threatening to spill over into chaos once more. "Then what do we do?" My voice cracked slightly under pressure, uncertainty gnawed at my insides relentlessly now. It was becoming unbearable. "We need to decide if this is worth continuing or if we should end things before anyone gets hurt further." His eyes searched mine for understanding but found only confusion reflected back at him instead, a mirror image filled with fear and longing intertwined tightly together within me, still yearning for connection despite knowing it could lead nowhere good eventually. As he spoke those fateful words aloud, the weight behind them settling deep within both our hearts, I realized how fragile everything truly was. How easily love could slip away when faced with reality's harsh light illuminating all shadows hiding beneath surfaces once thought safe. And just then, the door swung open behind us revealing an unexpected figure stepping inside, the last person either of us wanted to see right now, my husband walking straight toward us with purpose written all over his face. Time froze as dread enveloped me completely. Nothing would ever be the same again after tonight. The tension in the air was palpable as my husband approached. I could see the determination etched on his face, a stark contrast to the warmth I had felt just moments before with my best friend's kiss still lingering in my memory. My heart raced, not just from fear but from the chaos of emotions swirling within me. "Jessica," he said, his voice steady but strained. "We need to talk." I glanced at Mark, my husband's best friend, whose expression mirrored my own unease. We were caught in a moment that felt both surreal and painfully real. The weight of our secret hung heavily between us like a thick fog. "Can we just," I started, but he cut me off. "No. Not here." He gestured toward the door, urging me to step outside with him. My mind raced with possibilities as I followed him out of the cafe and into the bustling streets of San Francisco. The vibrant city around us seemed oblivious to my internal turmoil. I could hear the distant sounds of street musicians and laughter, yet all I felt was a growing sense of dread. "What's going on?" he asked once we were away from prying eyes. I don't know how to explain," I stammered, searching for words that wouldn't betray me completely. "Things have been complicated." "Complicated?" "Jess, you've been distant for months now." His brow furrowed with concern. "I thought we were working through this together." A wave of guilt washed over me as his words struck a nerve. How could I explain that while he poured himself into work, I found comfort in someone else? It felt wrong to admit it out loud, even if it was true. "I'm sorry," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. He took a step closer, his eyes searching mine for answers. "Is there someone else?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. My heart pounded as silence stretched between us. How could I deny it when every moment spent with Mark echoed in my mind? Yet confessing would only lead to heartbreak for both of us. "I've just been feeling lost," I finally said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the tremor within me. "Lost?" He shook his head in disbelief. "Jess, we can find our way back together if you let me help you." I wanted to believe him. Part of me still clung to the hope that we could salvage what remained of our marriage. But another part, a much louder part, craved something different, passion and connection that had long faded from our lives. As if sensing my inner conflict, he reached for my hand and squeezed it gently. "Just tell me what you need." In that moment, memories flooded back, the laughter we once shared over coffee dates and late-night talks about dreams and aspirations. But those moments felt like echoes from a distant past now overshadowed by this new reality. Before I could respond or even gather my thoughts, Mark stepped outside behind us. His face was pale as he caught sight of us standing so close together. An unspoken tension crackled in the air again. "Is everything okay?" Mark asked cautiously. My husband released my hand abruptly as if caught doing something forbidden. Guilt washed over me anew at this betrayal against him, yet here was Mark who had become an unexpected source of comfort amid chaos. "We're just talking," my husband replied tersely, his tone defensive as he shot Mark a wary glance. I sensed an unspoken rivalry brewing between them, a clash fueled by emotions neither wanted to acknowledge openly. The complexity of our relationships twisted tighter around us like an intricate knot impossible to untangle without causing pain. "We should go," Mark suggested after a moment's hesitation. His eyes flickered between us before settling on me with concern evident within them. "Yeah," I agreed reluctantly. Leaving felt like abandoning everything we'd shared thus far, the laughter and warmth that had filled those stolen moments together, but staying would only complicate matters further. As we walked away from the cafe into the fading light of evening casting long shadows across our path, doubt gnawed at me relentlessly, a reminder of choices made and paths taken leading toward uncertainty ahead. Days turned into weeks filled with secret rendezvous between stolen glances at art exhibits or quiet conversations over coffee where laughter masked deeper truths lurking beneath surface-level banter. Yet each encounter left me craving more than fleeting moments spent together amidst stolen kisses under moonlit skies. Our lips met again during one such evening stroll through Golden Gate Park where whispers floated softly on warm breezes carrying promises unspoken yet heavily weighted by consequence looming ever closer like dark clouds gathering overhead threatening storms ahead. But every time reality beckoned back into focus, the life waiting for me at home, my heart sank under its weight. How could I choose between two worlds both offering pieces missing from one another? Then came that fateful night when everything changed irrevocably. The night when secrets collided head-on with truth-shattering illusions built upon fragile foundations threatening everything dear held tightly within grasp now slipping through fingers like grains of sand lost forever. My phone buzzed insistently on the table beside me while sharing dinner with my husband, a message notification illuminating the screen bearing Mark's name sending shockwaves rippling through every fiber within. Instinctively glancing down before catching myself realizing how reckless this had become. "What is it?" my husband asked sharply breaking through haze clouding judgment forcing clarity upon realization. This wasn't just about feelings anymore. It was about choices made without consideration toward consequences waiting patiently lurking nearby readying themselves for reckoning ahead. The tension in the air was palpable as I forced myself to swallow the bite of overcooked chicken on my plate. My husband's eyes were fixed on me, searching for answers I couldn't provide. The message had come at a time when I should have been fully present, yet my mind raced with thoughts of Mark. What had started as a simple friendship had spiraled into something unrecognizable, and now it felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. "You seem distracted." "Just tired," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. A part of me wished he would press further, but another part was relieved when he turned back to his plate, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. As dinner dragged on, I kept replaying our last encounter in my mind, the warmth of Mark's hand brushing against mine, the way his laughter filled the air like music. The thrill of those moments was intoxicating, but they came with an undeniable cost. Each secret rendezvous felt like a step further away from the life I once knew. Later that night, after we finished cleaning up the kitchen and settled into our usual routine on the couch, I felt restless. My husband flipped through channels while I stared blankly at the television screen. It wasn't long before exhaustion took over, and I excused myself to bed. Once in the solitude of my room, I reached for my phone. Mark's name glowed brightly against the dark background as if calling out to me. My heart raced as I typed out a message, "Can we meet tomorrow? I need to see you." I hit send and lay back against my pillow, anxiety swirling within me as sleep eluded me. My thoughts drifted toward what tomorrow might hold, another stolen moment with Mark or perhaps an acknowledgement of how far we'd gone. The next day unfolded quietly until lunchtime when I found myself at our favorite cafe in San Francisco, a cozy spot filled with familiar faces and the rich scent of coffee wafting through the air. As soon as Mark walked through the door, my heart skipped a beat. He looked just as handsome as ever. "Hey," he said softly as he slid into the seat across from me. "Hey," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the butterflies dancing in my stomach. We exchanged small talk at first, discussions about art exhibits and mutual acquaintances, but soon our conversation turned deeper. There was an unspoken understanding between us that ignited every word we shared. "I've been thinking about us," Mark said cautiously after a pause that stretched longer than comfortable. "What do you mean?" My pulse quickened, anticipation mixed with dread. He leaned closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear him above the cafe's chatter. Whatever this is between us, it feels real." "It does," I admitted reluctantly, knowing full well how dangerous those words were. Mark reached across the table and took my hand in his, a simple gesture that sent electricity coursing through me. "We can't keep pretending this isn't happening." A wave of guilt washed over me like cold water, thoughts of my husband flashed through my mind like a warning siren blaring in the distance. "I don't want to hurt anyone," I whispered. "You're not happy," he countered gently yet firmly. I looked into his eyes, deep pools reflecting understanding and desire, and for that moment everything else faded away. We spent hours talking until closing time approached. Each word drew us closer together until it felt impossible to deny what was happening between us any longer. When we finally left the cafe under San Francisco's twinkling lights, we walked side by side toward Golden Gate Park, a place where we could escape reality for just a little while longer. The night air was crisp against our skin, laughter echoed around us as couples strolled by hand in hand oblivious to our turmoil. "I wish things were different," Mark said softly as we paused near a quiet bench surrounded by trees swaying gently in the breeze. "Me too," I replied honestly without realizing how much those words would haunt me later. In that moment of vulnerability shared between us under starlit skies, something shifted irrevocably within both of us. It felt like stepping off a cliff without knowing where we'd land next. Before long, what began as innocent conversations evolved into something more profound, a connection neither of us could ignore any longer despite its implications looming large above us like dark clouds ready to burst open at any moment. As days turned into weeks filled with secret meetings and stolen kisses hidden from prying eyes, the weight of secrecy began bearing down heavily upon me. Every glance exchanged became charged with unspoken fears about what awaited if anyone discovered our affair. Then one evening after another emotional rendezvous spent wrapped up in each other's arms, we spent the night together, lost in whispered confessions and dreams shared under soft moonlight illuminating everything around us. But just when it seemed like nothing could disrupt this fragile bubble we'd created, life had other plans waiting just beyond reach ready to shatter everything apart. Later that week while running errands downtown, I unexpectedly bumped into Sarah, an old friend from college who always had an uncanny ability to read people well enough she could sense even slight changes beneath surface appearances. "Jessica," she exclaimed cheerfully before her expression shifted slightly upon noticing something off about me. Her brow furrowed slightly while studying my face, closely scrutinizing every detail, searching for hidden truths lurking behind carefully constructed facades built over years. "Hey. It's been ages." I managed, awkwardly forcing enthusiasm into my voice, hoping she wouldn't pry too deeply into matters best left unsaid. Yet Sarah wasn't one to let things slide easily. She leaned closer, asking pointedly, "You look different. Are you okay? You seem preoccupied." Caught off guard by her perceptiveness, I hesitated before answering, uncertain how much honesty would reveal too much or potentially expose secrets better left buried deep within shadows cast by choices made without proper consideration. "I'm fine. Just busy with work stuff," came out flippantly, almost too quickly betraying underlying tensions simmering beneath surface. But Sarah wasn't convinced. Her instinct told her something more significant lurked beneath facade crafted meticulously over years spent navigating life's complexities alongside friends who knew each other intimately enough not only recognize changes but also question them outright. As we chatted briefly about mundane topics, I couldn't shake feeling exposed under scrutiny, especially knowing how intertwined lives remained back then despite paths diverging since college days long gone past. When finally parting ways, I exhaled, deeply relieved yet anxious, wondering whether she sensed anything beyond surface-level exchanges shared moments earlier. That evening while preparing dinner at home, I couldn't shake feeling uneasy despite attempts focusing attention elsewhere, hoping distraction would quell rising tide threatening overwhelm completely. But even amidst mundane tasks preparing meals, thoughts kept drifting back toward Mark, the way his presence lit up every room, leaving lingering warmth behind long after departure, reminding me why indulging in these fleeting moments felt worth risks taken a long way. And so another night passed uneventfully until phone buzzed again, breaking silence, filling space around, creating tension thick enough cut through knife, leaving behind echoes lingering, still whispering reminders choices made wouldn't come without consequences eventually, demanding reckoning arrive sooner rather than later. The following morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting soft shadows across the room. I woke with a sense of dread pooling in my stomach. The weight of my choices pressed down on me, and the guilt gnawed at my insides like a persistent hunger. I glanced at my phone, half expecting to see a message from Mark that would somehow soothe the turmoil within me. Instead, it was just another reminder of the mundane: appointments, errands, and a calendar filled with obligations. As I prepared breakfast for John, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. He entered the kitchen with his usual morning cheerfulness, but I noticed a flicker of suspicion in his eyes. "You seem distracted lately," he said casually, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "Just tired," I replied too quickly, hoping he wouldn't pry further. The truth was that every moment spent with him felt like an act, a performance where I had to hide the truth behind a mask of normalcy. After breakfast, I decided to take a walk in Golden Gate Park. The sprawling greenery and vibrant colors always brought me solace, but today they felt like an illusion. Each step echoed with reminders of my secret life, every rustle of leaves seemed to whisper Mark's name. As I strolled along the familiar paths, memories flooded back, laughter shared under the sun, and conversations that flowed effortlessly between us. I found myself sitting on a bench overlooking the lake, lost in thought until my phone buzzed again. It was Mark. "Can we meet today?" A simple message that sent my heart racing and my mind spiraling into chaos. With each passing hour leading up to our meeting at the cafe later that day, anxiety twisted inside me like a coiled spring ready to snap. What would we talk about? Would he mention how often I had been avoiding him? Or worse, would he bring up the possibility of ending things? When I arrived at our usual spot in the cafe, Mark was already seated by the window, his expression unreadable as he looked up from his coffee. "Hey," he greeted softly. "Hi," I replied, sliding into the chair opposite him. The warmth of his gaze ignited something deep within me, a feeling both exhilarating and terrifying. "I've been thinking," he paused, searching for words while stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. "About us." My heart raced at his admission. Every part of me wanted to hear what came next yet feared its implications. "What do you mean?" He took a breath before continuing. "I don't want this to just be about sneaking around anymore." His sincerity wrapped around me like a comforting blanket but also ignited a firestorm inside my mind. How could we ever be anything more than this? "I know it's complicated," I said carefully. "But what do you want?" "I want to feel free to be together without all this secrecy." His voice carried an urgency that made me ache for something more tangible than fleeting moments hidden away from prying eyes. As our conversation continued to flow between us, tension hung thick in the air like smoke from an extinguished candle, familiar yet suffocating. We shared laughter and memories while dancing around unspoken truths until finally silence settled over us. "I think we need some time apart," Mark said suddenly as if reading my thoughts aloud. A chill ran down my spine. Those words felt like ice water splashed across my heart. "Why?" "Because this isn't sustainable," he replied firmly yet gently. "I care about you too much for this." I nodded slowly but felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. The prospect of losing him felt unbearable even if it was necessary for both our sakes. Before leaving the cafe, Mark reached across the table and squeezed my hand gently, a silent promise lingering between us as we parted ways once more. Returning home later that evening brought no comfort, only shadows danced across familiar walls as John greeted me with his usual warmth and affection, completely unaware of what lay beneath surface appearances. "Did you have fun?" he asked while setting down his briefcase by the door. "Yeah," I managed to say without betraying any hint of turmoil brewing inside me. As we settled onto opposite ends of the couch for our nightly routine, a movie chosen from streaming services, I couldn't shake off feeling trapped between two worlds, one filled with love yet overshadowed by betrayal, another promising freedom but fraught with uncertainty. When John leaned over during an emotional scene in the film and kissed my cheek tenderly, guilt washed over me anew. It felt wrong yet achingly right all at once. Later that night as I prepared for bed after John had fallen asleep beside me peacefully unaware, I picked up my phone intending only to send Mark a quick message letting him know how much I appreciated him, but instead stumbled upon something unexpected, an unread voicemail left on my phone earlier in the day. Curiosity piqued, I pressed play without thinking twice about its origins or implications, and immediately recognized John's voice on the line saying something incomprehensible mixed with static noise before abruptly cutting off mid-sentence, leaving behind echoes lingering, still whispering reminders choices made wouldn't come without consequences, eventually demanding reckoning arrive sooner rather than later. The realization hit hard as panic surged through me. Had he found out? Was this why he'd been acting differently? My heart raced as thoughts spiraled outwards, weaving tales darker than reality could ever paint. And then it happened. The familiar sound of footsteps echoed down hallways towards our bedroom door, causing adrenaline coursing through veins racing against time. John appeared silhouetted against dim light spilling from living room lamps, illuminating uncertainty etched across features once filled only with love, now clouded by doubt. "What's going on?" he asked sharply, breaking silence thick enough cut through knife, leaving behind echoes lingering, still whispering reminders choices made wouldn't come without consequences, eventually demanding reckoning arrive sooner rather than later. The silence in the room was deafening, each second stretching into eternity. I could see the shadows of doubt flickering across John's face, a stark contrast to the warmth that once radiated from him. There was a time when his eyes sparkled with affection, but now they held only suspicion. "What's going on?" he asked sharply, cutting through the thick tension that had settled between us. His voice trembled slightly, revealing the vulnerability beneath his anger. I struggled to find words that wouldn't betray me further. How could I explain the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me? The longing for connection, the thrill of being desired, it all felt like a betrayal of the life we had built together. Yet here I stood, caught in a web of my own making. "I've just been feeling disconnected," I managed to say, hoping it would suffice. The truth was far more complicated than I could articulate. My heart raced as I thought about Mark and our secret rendezvous, moments that had filled an emptiness I hadn't even realized existed. John crossed his arms tightly over his chest, a physical barrier forming between us. "Disconnected? Is that what you call it?" His words dripped with incredulity. "You've been distant for weeks now." I wanted to tell him everything, the late-night phone calls, the stolen kisses under the moonlight, but fear gripped me like a vice. What would he do if he knew? Would he lash out in anger or crumble under the weight of betrayal? "Maybe we should talk about this," I suggested cautiously, hoping to steer him away from the edge of suspicion. "Talk," he echoed bitterly. "Is that what you call it when you sneak off to meet someone else?" His accusation hung heavy in the air. I felt my heart sink as guilt washed over me like a cold wave crashing against rocks. The thrill of my secret life had turned sour now that it threatened to unravel everything I held dear. "John," my voice trailed off as I searched for a way to bridge this chasm between us. But how could I explain something so complex without shattering what remained of our fragile bond? He shook his head slowly, disappointment etched deep into his features. "I thought we were in this together," he said quietly, almost to himself. "But it seems you've found someone else." The words cut deeper than any knife ever could. It was true, Mark had become my escape, a balm for wounds John didn't even know existed. But how could I admit that without losing everything? As John turned away from me, frustration bubbled within me like a pot ready to boil over. My phone buzzed on the counter, another message from Mark asking if we were still on for our clandestine meeting later that evening at our usual cafe. "Is this about your art classes again?" John asked suddenly, turning back with narrowed eyes as if he were trying to pry open my thoughts. "No," I replied quickly, panic flooding my mind at the thought of him discovering Mark's name among my messages. "Then what is it?" His voice rose slightly with urgency. I took a deep breath and decided to deflect rather than confront. "I just need some space," I said softly, hoping it sounded convincing enough. "Space?" His laughter was bitter and hollow as it echoed through our home, our sanctuary now turned battleground. "You're not making any sense." "I'm trying." My voice cracked under pressure, tears threatened to spill over but I fought them back fiercely. The tension hung thick as John remained silent for what felt like an eternity before speaking again, his tone shifting from anger to something softer yet more painful. "I planned a surprise getaway for us next weekend." A lump formed in my throat as reality crashed down around me like waves against cliffs battered by storms. This was not just about us anymore. There were other lives intertwined in this mess of choices and consequences. "John," my heart raced at the thought of having to cancel those plans after everything we'd shared together. The laughter and love felt so distant now compared to this moment filled with accusations and secrets. "Don't," he interrupted sharply, holding up his hand as if warding off any further explanation or excuses from me. "Just don't." In that moment, everything shifted within me. A realization took root that couldn't be ignored any longer. Mark had expressed doubts about our relationship recently too. Perhaps he sensed something was amiss or maybe even wanted out himself. As John's words sank in deeper than any knife could cut through flesh or bone, a sudden surge of panic washed over me at both men teetering on edges readying themselves for departure while I stood frozen amid their stormy seas unable to choose which way forward led toward safety rather than ruin. "I have to go," John finally said after what felt like an eternity spent locked in silence. A decision made without consultation or consideration beyond mere survival instincts kicking into high gear, driving him away from confrontation, forcing closure upon us both before anything else transpired between two hearts once united, now fraying it seems, threatening complete unraveling. His footsteps receded down the hallway, leaving behind echoes reverberating through empty spaces where laughter used to fill corners once warmed by love shared freely, openly, without hesitation or fear, looming overhead, waiting patiently until moments like these arrived, uninvited, demanding attention. As soon as he left sight, I grabbed my phone, desperate fingers trembling against its smooth surface while contemplating whether reaching out would bring relief or further chaos into already tumultuous waters swirling around me, threatening drown beneath depths unfathomable unless action taken swiftly, decisively. "Can we talk?" The message read simply enough, yet heavy laden with implications far beyond mere words exchanged between two souls seeking solace amidst turmoil raging unchecked outside boundaries drawn long ago separating right, wrong, good, evil. Moments later came response echoing back almost immediately, "We need to think about what happens next." My heart sank. Was this really happening? Could everything unravel so quickly? Hadn't we crafted something beautiful amid shadows lurking just beyond reach, waiting patiently until darkness fell, enveloping all light, leaving nothing but uncertainty behind? With trembling hands, I typed back, "Please don't end things." But deep inside lurked fears, nagging relentlessly, reminding me choices made always came with consequences far greater than expected. Suddenly, my front door creaked open unexpectedly, drawing attention away from screen, illuminating darkened space, revealing figure standing silhouetted against bright light, spilling forth, casting long shadows across floorboards beneath, feet planted firmly ground, unyielding beneath weight bearing down heavier every passing second, ticking away time, slipping through fingers, grasping desperately onto threads holding lives together, fraying fast. My heart raced as I stood frozen in the doorway, the phone still pressed against my ear. The voice on the line belonged to Mark, my husband's best friend, and it was heavy with finality. "Jessica, I can't do this anymore," he said, each word piercing through the haze of confusion that had clouded my mind for weeks. "Please don't end things," I managed to whisper, though the desperation in my voice felt both foreign and familiar. It echoed the turmoil within me, an amalgamation of longing and guilt that had become my constant companions. "It's not just about us," he replied, his tone softening momentarily. "You need to think about your husband too." That statement hung in the air like a thundercloud ready to burst. The truth of it struck me harder than any confrontation could. As I stepped back into my living room, shadows danced across the walls from the streetlights outside. My mind raced to piece together the fragments of my life that felt increasingly out of control. Just days ago, I had been lost in moments of stolen happiness with Mark, but now I faced an impending storm that threatened to swallow everything whole. The weight of silence enveloped me as I hung up the phone. I sank onto the couch, staring blankly at a painting on the wall, a vibrant explosion of colors that once brought me joy but now felt like a mockery of my situation. My marriage had become a canvas splattered with neglect and unfulfilled desires, while my affair painted over it with fleeting strokes of excitement. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. My heart leaped into my throat as I glanced at the clock. It was far too late for casual visitors. Hesitantly, I approached and peeked through the peephole. Relief washed over me when I saw it was Susan, an old friend who lived nearby. "Jess. Open up," she called out cheerfully. I hesitated for a moment before unlocking the door and letting her in. "Hey. What are you doing here?" "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by." She stepped inside and immediately sensed something was off. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she studied me. "You okay?" Susan asked gently. "Yeah, just tired." My voice sounded hollow even to my ears. She moved closer and placed her hand on my arm. "You don't look okay." There was concern etched on her face, but all I could do was force a smile that felt more like a grimace. I've just been dealing with some stuff, I admitted reluctantly. Stuff? Or is it more than that? She pressed gently. The urge to confide in her surged within me. Perhaps sharing would lighten this burden pressing down on me like an anchor dragging me deeper into murky waters. But what would she think? Would she understand? Before I could respond, Susan's phone buzzed loudly from her pocket. She pulled it out and frowned at the screen before looking back up at me with worry etched across her features again. It's Mike, she said quietly, Mike being her husband and also one of Tom's close friends. He's been acting strange lately. What do you mean? He thinks something's going on between you and Mark. Her words struck me like lightning. Shock coursed through my veins as reality set in. How could Mike suspect anything? Had someone seen us together? What? That's ridiculous. My voice rose involuntarily as panic bubbled within me. Jess, Susan said firmly but softly, he has his reasons for feeling uneasy. I shook my head vehemently, denial wrapped around me like a comforting cloak despite its suffocating nature. There's nothing happening between us. Susan looked unconvinced but didn't press further, a silent acknowledgement passing between us that spoke volumes about unspoken truths hidden beneath layers of friendship. As we shifted topics to lighter subjects, work gossip and family updates, I struggled internally with what Susan had revealed. Each laugh felt forced while thoughts spiraled around potential consequences if anyone truly knew what had transpired over these past few months, the thrill of secret rendezvous overshadowed by looming dread threatening to unravel everything. When Susan finally left after an hour filled with surface-level chatter masked by underlying tension, I slumped against the doorframe feeling drained yet restless, a dichotomy that mirrored my life perfectly at this juncture. I needed clarity amid chaos. Perhaps a walk would help clear away some fog clouding both mind and heart alike. With hesitant determination guiding each step forward into cool night air wrapping around me like an embrace long forgotten, I ventured toward Golden Gate Park where memories lingered still among rustling leaves whispering secrets only they understood. The park glowed softly under moonlight casting silvery shadows across winding paths illuminated by scattered lampposts flickering sporadically overhead, a perfect backdrop for reflection or escape depending upon perspective chosen at any given moment. I wandered aimlessly until reaching a familiar bench nestled beneath sprawling branches draped gracefully overhead providing solace from prying eyes while allowing thoughts space to breathe freely without fear or judgment lingering nearby. Sitting there alone amidst tranquil surroundings offered temporary respite from reality, but soon enough memories flooded back unbidden. Laughter shared over cups of coffee exchanged during stolen afternoons spent together while hiding behind facades built carefully over years spent nurturing relationships once thought unbreakable now hanging precariously by threads unraveling slowly yet steadily. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again breaking through reverie pulling attention back toward present moment. Glancing down revealed another message from Mark lighting up screen illuminating darkened space surrounding me. I'm sorry Jess, can we meet tomorrow? A knot twisted painfully within stomach as uncertainty gripped tightly. What did he want now? Did he truly want closure or perhaps reconciliation? Each possibility carried weight heavier than last leaving no room for air between breaths taken steadily becoming shallower with every passing second ticking away time slipping through fingers grasping desperately onto threads holding lives together fraying fast. As night deepened around me, the world became quieter except for distant sounds echoing through park filled with memories lingering still. My heart wrestled against choices made thus far leading toward inevitable reckoning awaiting just beyond horizon shimmering faintly beckoning forth unknown future filled uncertainty looming ever closer threatening to engulf everything once cherished. Tomorrow would bring answers, but would they lead toward healing or further heartbreak? The weight of the moment hung heavy in the air, thick with unspoken words and the echoes of past decisions. My husband's eyes bore into mine, a mix of hurt and confusion swirling within them. The room felt suffocating, as if the very walls were closing in, demanding answers that I was not prepared to give. Jessica, he said, his voice low but steady. I need to know what's going on. You've been distant for months. Is there someone else? The question pierced through me like a sharp knife. I had never wanted it to come to this, but here we were, standing on the precipice of truth. My heart raced as I searched for words that could bridge the chasm between us, words that could explain everything without tearing apart what little remained of our marriage. I hesitated, grappling with the reality of my choices. How could I explain a connection so deep yet so wrong? The thrill of stolen moments with his best friend flashed before my eyes, the laughter shared over coffee at our local cafe, the quiet exchanges in crowded galleries, and those fleeting touches that ignited something dormant within me. Is it him? My husband's voice cut through my thoughts like glass shattering on concrete. I looked away, unable to meet his gaze any longer. The truth hung in the air like a specter waiting to be acknowledged. It's complicated, I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Complicated, he echoed incredulously. You've been seeing him behind my back. How is that complicated? His anger was palpable now, an energy that sparked between us like electricity. I felt cornered, trapped by my own actions and the hurt they had caused. Each accusation felt justified. How could I defend myself against something so indefensible? I didn't mean for it to happen, I finally admitted, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I needed someone who understood me. Someone who understood you, he repeated, disbelief etched in every line of his face. What about our vows? What about us? The memories flooded back, the promises made on a sunlit day years ago when everything felt possible and love seemed unbreakable. Yet here we stood, facing the consequences of choices made in moments of weakness. I thought you were happy, he continued softly now, as if trying to find some semblance of understanding amid the chaos. That's just it, I confessed, my voice trembling as I fought against the tide of emotion threatening to overwhelm me. I don't know if I've been happy for a long time. Silence enveloped us then, a silence filled with shattered dreams and unfulfilled expectations. The distance between us felt insurmountable, each heartbeat echoed like a reminder of what we had lost. Do you love him? His question struck me harder than any accusation could have. The truth lingered on my lips, a truth tangled with guilt and desire, but would saying it make things better or worse? Would it bring clarity or deepen the wound? My heart raced as uncertainty loomed larger than ever before. I don't know, I finally said, feeling raw and exposed under his scrutiny. I don't know what love is anymore. His expression shifted then, hurt giving way to resignation, as if he had braced himself for this moment yet still found it unbearable. Is there anything left worth saving? He asked quietly. The weight of his words hung heavy between us. They were both a challenge and an invitation, a chance for redemption or finality depending on how we chose to respond. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed violently against the table where it lay forgotten until now. The sound sliced through our fragile moment like a siren wailing in an otherwise still night. It's him, I murmured instinctively reaching for it without thinking further about consequences. My husband's gaze darkened as he watched me pick up the phone, his expression shifting from anger to something akin to despair as recognition washed over him. Don't answer it, he warned sharply, but something inside pushed me forward despite knowing full well this moment would only add fuel to an already raging fire. Ignoring his plea, I glanced at the screen, a message from my husband's best friend asking if we could meet tonight, desperate words tinged with worry about our last encounter lingering unaddressed between us both. What do you want? My voice trembled slightly as uncertainty crept back into focus while glancing back at my husband who stood rigidly across from me, a wall built high against any further betrayal unfolding before him once more. What does he want? My husband asked coldly now, his tone laced with bitterness mixed alongside pain evident in every syllable spoken aloud without hesitation anymore either way towards resolution looming ahead just out of reach still. In that charged moment filled with conflicting emotions swirling around us both, I faced an impossible choice: stay true to what remained or risk everything by responding again, plunging deeper into chaos even further than before. "I have to talk to him," I said finally, determined yet terrified, all at once knowing full well what lay ahead might shatter whatever semblance remained intact between us, already strained beyond recognition through these choices made along this winding road leading nowhere certain anymore either way. As those words left my lips hanging heavy above us both, the silence returned, wrapping around tightly once again, leaving nothing but uncertainty trailing behind every breath taken next amidst shadows cast long across our lives, intertwined forevermore, now marked by choices made here tonight.